Very much, Yvonne, and good afternoon to everybody. We're absolutely delighted to be able to join you this afternoon and to talk to you about some of the experiences of our organisation as we work with our communities to help create active communities. Now, in terms of putting what we do into some context, I thought I might just tell you very, very quickly a little bit about us. So we're actually quite a young group of companies. We were only formed in 2017, and essentially we've got kind of four strings to our bow. We have a sports consultancy side to what we do. We have a sports infrastructure and a design and build element to what we do. We have a playground and play adventure arm, and we also have a sports brokerage area of our work where we help to attract investors and help them to invest in the right parts of sport to enable those sports to thrive. So we're really quite a diverse organisation, but the one thing that binds all of us together is that the guys who brought this group together, we're really passionate about making a difference to community well-being and trying to bring some of our experiences from a range of backgrounds into that play. We really hope that we're ethically driven and we're inclusive, not just in our thoughts, but importantly in our actions. I'm not saying for one second that we're perfect and we seek to learn all of the time, but we do try to be as ethical as we can in our thoughts and our deeds. We also are really keen to be a company that can bring people together. We know how tough it is for community organisations to get their project across the line and to really make a difference for the different community audiences that they're trying to engage in activity and well-being. So we also see ourselves as an organisation that can have conversations, can bring different types of organisations, sometimes organisations that don't naturally talk to each other, to come together to understand what the problem is that we're trying to solve and then try to move forward to make amazing happen for communities. And what's key to our offer really is to try to think about the project and what it means and how do we use innovation and excellence to get the most for the community and to make sure that the project delivers for what the audience actually requires. Now, as I said, inclusion and diversity is at the core of the Reech Sports Group. I think it starts with people, and we've got an amazing eclectic group of individuals who all bring something different to our offer. We have sports management individuals and C-suite executives. We have former professional athletes that have been right on the top of their game. We've got professional coaches involved in the company, and we also have directors of sport who are still active today. So we've got a wealth of sport experience, and what we try to do from that innovation piece is match that sport experience with technical expertise, financial expertise, planning expertise, to bring together a group of individuals who can really begin to understand the needs of a particular community. And you can see from some of the pictures on the screen that when we talk about developing inclusive spaces for activities, it's not just about doing the normal, it's about looking at what can we make a difference for the particular audience that we're trying to support. When we're approaching community inclusive spaces, we really try to get under the skin of the project. We really need to try to understand from the community what is the vision and what is the scale of the ambition for the project. That is really critical in order for the network to understand what it is we need to solve. We also need to have an understanding of the target audience. What are the particular communities or mix of community? What's the profile of the environment? What's the level of availability and accessibility the community has to finance, to travel, to accessing facilities at different times of the day? We need to understand what the facility design needs are. It's really important when we're working with communities to understand what that scale is, but also to be realistic in terms of what it is they can actually achieve, how far we can help their budget to spin, and actually what is going to be the important part of facility design that's going to make the big impact that they want to achieve from their vision and their ambition. And then we try to bring from a wide range of advisory colleagues, what is the added value that we can bring to support their vision and their ambition? And in doing that, how do we also future-proof the facility in terms of sustainability, in terms of financial management, in terms of maintenance? How do we actually invest in a community facility that is going to be fit for the future? And ultimately, is the project achievable? And we have to have a level of honesty and transparency in the room. And quite often we'll say to organisations in the community, you know, listen, we really admire the ambition, but it's just not achievable and we need to scale it back. Or sometimes we'll actually look at the vision and we'll say, actually, we think there's a bigger project here, and with a bigger network of investors, we can take it further. And these are the kind of questions that we hear, particularly from community organisations, third sectors, who are really trying to make a difference for their communities. You know, where do we start with a project? What's the launch plan? What do the milestones look like? What does the project look like? How much will it cost? That's obviously going to be a biggie. Quite often we don't start with a cost question. That comes in at the end once we understand what it is they're trying to achieve. Clearly, everybody understands funding networks, how to access them, how to approach them, how to prepare their applications, and what support can we give in that area. And if they do cross the line, what does the business plan look like? Whether the project is small, large, you need a plan going forward. So how do we help them to maximise not just the maintenance of the facility, but actually can they achieve some income from the facility, which will help to reinvest to keep that lifespan of the facility going for a longer duration. And to take away the pressure of the technical stuff. A lot of community organisations just don't want to get into that space, but they need to have honesty and confidence that the partners working around them will put them on the right track. And ultimately, how do they keep it going? We've got some case studies that we'll just run through this afternoon, really conscious of time, and this is only a 20-minute session. So we've got case studies which will be shared with you, which will expand on some of the examples I'm going to give. So the first case study is Daisy Inclusive UK within Liverpool. This is a disability one-stop centre providing a whole range of social support packages for disabled people in the Everton area of the city. Now, interestingly, with this project, we hadn't worked with them to build it. This was a project that had actually gone off the rails. They'd got into some issues with another provider. They were probably misquoted in terms of what they had to invest. And probably the biggest challenge for this project was actually at the heart of the project, what were they trying to achieve and what was the audience that they were trying to achieve for? So we worked with the organisation, we were able to engage, understand what the needs were, and then design and innovate a very, very tight space so that we could provide accessible surfacing for wheelchairs and power chairs, to have low-level basketball nets, to introduce a bocce court which was accessible, to still introduce traditional basketball height hoops, but also to bring in visibly accessible cricket wickets and backboards which were accessible for visually impaired people. So it was really trying to understand what the problem was and then come up with a solution. The second case study is based in Derby, the Enthusiasm Trust. Now, I think the problem with this site was that there was real ambition to engage the local community. But unfortunately, as you can see from the picture on the left, there was a lot of vandalism on the site, there was neglect, there was antisocial behaviour, and it was also in a relatively underprivileged area. And actually, the solution, working with a network of partners, including Sport England, was this just needed to be a low-cost solution, which was fit for purpose, would be sustainable, which was critically important for this area, would be relatively maintenance-free, and would be robust, but would still provide free, accessible activity for people of all ages, and particularly the 11 to 18-year-olds, where they wanted to address issues of antisocial behaviour in that particular space. And by revitalising what was already underlying the previous surface, we were able to work with that partner so they could free up budget, so they were also able to introduce fitness equipment within the park outside of this particular space to extend the offer. So a low-cost solution, fit for for purpose, meeting the needs of the community, and really beginning to work with their budget to make those pennies go further. The third case study is around the special educational needs site within Neath in the South Wales Valleys. It's Hendrefelin School. Some of the challenges with this community project and inclusive space was that essentially they were trying to serve two school sites. So we had students with physical impairment, sensory impairment, we had children with intellectual impairment, and there was also a unit on the school which is around challenging behaviours. So even within a small community, there were automatically different needs and different solutions that we had to find. We also recognised with the school that part of their problem is that they had a green space which was waterlogged, and of course for some of the users in chairs it was a totally inaccessible space, and therefore they weren't able to deliver inclusive well-being for all of their pupils. So the solution was to initially work with the pupils, to engage the pupils and to take inspiration from them as to what they wanted to achieve. And what they essentially wanted was an accessible play space along the lines of a multi-use games area, but also with a wheelchair user training track around the outside. And you would have also seen in an earlier slide, we had some floor level trampolines in order to support some pupils to come from their chairs directly onto the wheelchairs, so onto the trampolines. So it was led and inspired by the pupils, and they took ownership of the project. And our role really was then to work with a range of partners. One of the ways that we work often with communities around inclusive spaces is to try to find an anchor funder. And in this case, we worked with the Cruyff Foundation, and they committed to the project. And once we were able to levy that commitment, we were then able to involve the local authority with confidence and Sport Wales in terms of generating a really fantastic space for a different type of audience. But this space is now being used on a daily basis. And ironically, we know we're coming back from COVID, and we know that disabled people have been adversely affected by COVID, in some cases continue to be adversely affected by COVID, and therefore creating an outdoor space, an all year round weather opportunity, all year round facility was a real opportunity to create a sustainable offer for the school. The final case study is slightly different. This is around a health and fitness centre in Llanelli. Now, there was already a pre-existing gym which was on the site in Llanelli. It was probably a very typical gym and fitness centre, and the user profile is what I would call probably typical of what you would find within that kind of environment. The scale of this project is really ambitious, and therefore, in terms of looking at these inclusive community spaces, the risks are different. So what we're looking at for this particular project is how do we align the ambition and the scale of the project alongside the financial risks and the sustainability? How do you create a business model which actually enables this facility to still enable people from the community to come into the centre at an affordable price and still enable the facility to wash its face moving forward? Inclusion was at the heart of this particular facility, and it's designed so that it meets the needs of the widest community groups within Llanelli, and also trying to look at a different funding model, which is a mix of public and private investment to make this type of facility work. So there's a whole range of activities that we will work alongside, a whole range of organisations. We're currently working with Bridgend Rugby Football Club. We're turning what was at one time 100 metres of hospitality boxes into a new community health and wellbeing centre. And that is just a club, a sports club, a not-for-profit club, just reimagining their space and thinking not only how do they add value to their own sport, their own club moving forward, but how do they engage the community on site? And you get that virtuous circle of improving community well-being, but also driving new membership into the heart of the rugby club. So there are so many innovative projects and organisations that we will have the privilege of working alongside. And just really to close out, we are sort of really keen as an organisation that we're also able to give back to communities. Since we started as a company, we've had a foundation called Reech Foundation. We've been working down in Durva in Mumbai, which is one of the largest areas of poverty. We've set up a football club down there for boys and girls, and really important within that particular community that we're able to get that gender balance right. Set the club up, make sure they get access to coaching, they get access to health and well-being, to other advice, and also support through COVID as well in terms of their family and making sure that they were well fed, healthy and active. And we also run a bocce community program in India. And it's really interesting, when we're working overseas in these different environments, we also get lots of learning. And actually some of that learning we can bring back into the UK and transfer UK learning over into some of these other overseas areas that we work. And we're really excited that we're just set up a partnership with Foundation 92 in Salford, and we're going to be supporting them to deliver increased disability well-being programs across that area. So it's really trying to work with a range of organisations, understanding what their needs are, trying to work with solutions, trying to bring networks together and trying to make amazing happen. So thanks very much for giving us this time today. We're really pleased to be a partner of this webinar, and we look forward to sharing our case studies with you after the session. Diolch yn fawr, thanks very much.